So there's been a collection of tragic police deaths that have taken place over the past couple of days. The three people seem to be talking about most are Peyton Ham, Dante Wright, and most of all, I think, probably Adam Toledo. And the discourse has been fairly predictable. We know where the left stands, and we know where the right stands. But I thought it would be nice to actually talk about one specific case, namely Adam Toledo, and why it should fill your blood with boiling rage. You know, why I want you to have the confidence to defend intellectually the boiling blood coursing through your veins, if you will. This is an article that released 4 days ago. Prosecutors allege 13-year-old had a gun when he was shot by Chicago police. What we know. Tensions are high as the city prepares for the release of troubling video footage of the fatal police shooting of 13-year-old Adam Toledo last month. Saturday, prosecutors described what the officer's body camera footage showed, alleging Adam had a gun when he was fatally shot in the city's west side. Now, notice that wording. The prosecutors described what the body cam footage showed, as in the prosecutors took a look at that body cam footage and they said, yes, Adam Toledo had a gun when he was shot. And then the body cam footage was released. And you're never going to guess what happened. Adam Toledo had dropped the firearm about 1 second before the cop fired at him. Kid dropped the gun. Now, you could say he had a gun past tense, but he complied with the officer's demands. He dropped the gun and had his hands up. The prosecutors, having watched the body cam footage, knowing that the body cam footage would be released to the public, knowing fully well that this is a provable lie that they're about to engage in, said that he had a gun when he was shot. Now, there's a little bit of semantic fuckery here, because technically you could say he had a gun when he was shot, and you mean there was a gun in his possession in the broader sense when he was shot. But that's not really what we care about, is it? Because you could say that a person had a gun when they were shot if that gun was just lawfully holstered in a concealed carry, holster they have at their side. That's them having a gun. If you say a person has a gun when they're shot, what you're implying with that language is they were brandishing that firearm and that their brandishing that firearm was a threat. Why did he have a gun? Not trying to be conservative. I'm just curious. Who cares? Does that matter? The kid didn't deserve to die. What that kid deserved was to be, it seemed like there was some trouble in the area that the cop was bringing people in for. That kid deserved to present his case to a judge with a lawyer at his side. That is what the kid deserved. I do not care what the circumstances of his legal improprieties are. I don't care if he was a murderer. I don't care if he murdered a person. Everyone, unless there is an immediate need to kill them to defend yourself or somebody else, deserves to present their case in court. Every single person. The cop's job is not to be a shortcut to the death chamber for the judge, okay? They're not like a little sneaky workaround, like, you could go through the legal system, we could or you could just shoot him. That ain't their job. Their job is to bring people to court. The kid dropped the gun 0.8 seconds before the cop shot him. Now, I propose to you this. I'm not a cop, but I'm going to make a statement anyway. If you are so jumpy that a gun which is not being pointed at you, a gun which is simply being held, is dropped, beat, and then about 1 second later you fire a shot, you shouldn't be a cop. You should be in jail. Because what you just did is shoot a person for complying with your lawful demand. What the fuck are you supposed to do? He dropped the gun and he put his hands up. That's the job. That's what do you suppose? What is this Simon Says bullshit? You drop the gun, you put your hands up. What? How long does it take to squeeze the trigger? If it takes you 0.8 seconds to squeeze a trigger, you probably shouldn't be a cop either. I don't know what kind of degenerative muscle disease you have. I don't know what sort of 87-pound howitzer cannon trigger pull this guy's got on his Glock, but I think 0.8 seconds is sufficient length of time to recognize that a child has complied to your demand, okay? Our brains work a little faster than that, okay? Just a little bit faster. If you comply under these circumstances, it seemed the kid did, that's it. Kid should get to live. Now, conservatives, naturally, are losing their fucking mind about this. What's that dipshit's name? Andy No was posting pictures and videos alleging the kid had the firearm at the time, saying, just, of course, he does the thing, because they're pro-death. Ben Shapiro had a segment on his show where he went over the video cam footage. I can't show it because I'm on Twitch, unfortunately. You're free to go look at the footage yourself if you would like to. It'll affirm what I've said. And of course, Ben Shapiro was doing the bootlicker thing, oh, well, why did he ever go, he ran away? Well, the kid at first ran away, and then when the kid was caught, he dropped the gun and put his hands up, which, okay, you shouldn't run away. I mean, but the kid's 13, and again, that doesn't matter. The cop fucked up. They're doing the whole circuit. Yeah, Sean Hannity, oh, this one's really good. Sean Hannity called him a 13-year-old man. That is a combination of words I have never heard before in my life. A 13-year-old man. It's like a joke, It's like a joke that you would use to make fun of some, it's like the ephebophile language, you know what I mean? Like, yeah, he's 13. He's like an adult, That's the language I'm looking at here. Oh, yeah, and Hannity did call Rittenhouse a boy. What? Yeah, 100%. Yeah, this is, Rittenhouse is a 17-year-old boy. Adam Toledo is a 13-year-old man. Could the language here be any clearer? Could it be any clearer? Yeah, Matt Gaetz calling a 17-year-old a woman, okay? Let me be clear, all right? If under any circumstances a mainstream newscaster, or really anybody, I mean anybody with any kind of clout, refers to an under 18 as a man or a woman, some shit is going on there, okay? There is some significant bias, some reason they are doing that, because nobody just explicitly off the cuff of their mind says 13-year-old man. Nobody says that. I've never heard that before in my life. I've heard like, wow, you're a little young man, like I was 13, my mom was like, you're such a handsome young man. Like, okay, but not 13-year-old man. But they do it because when you refer to a person as a man, it suggests that they're more culpable for the circumstances leading up to their own death. If you call him a boy, people sympathize. That's the reason why. You call the 17-year-old Matt Gaetz trafficked a girl, suddenly things seem a little bit pedophilic. You call her a woman, not so much of an issue. You call a 13-year-old boy gunned down by a cop after complying with a lawful order, and, 13-year-old man, call him a boy, and suddenly people get, teary-eyed about the needless death of a child. Rittenhouse, kill a couple people, run on by after bringing a firearm illegally to a protest, brandishing it, and just having a little bit of fun. That's a boy, 17-year-old boy. Wonder how far we can go with that, You think next time there's some big far-right shooter, he's going to be like 19, 20 at a college campus or something? They're going to be calling him a boy too. You know what I mean? Were they calling Elliot Rodgers a boy? I don't know. Maybe. I bet somebody did. Somebody somewhere did. It's fucked up. And I think the first thing that we should learn from this story, I mean, what's the first thing we should learn here? Conservatives are evil? Great. Easy. Wow. You've watched my channel for any length of time. Sure you can. Sure that one rolls right off the tongue for you, doesn't it? But I think the other thing we really need to take from this is, wow, body cam footage sure is useful, isn't it? Because if it weren't for that body camera, the prosecutor's statement that the child had a gun at the time, would have been the final statement. That would have been that. If in fact, knowing that there was no body cam footage available, the prosecutors probably would have said that the child was brandishing the firearm at the officer, and the officer shot in self-defense. The only reason they curtailed their language slightly before the release of the body cam footage, in all likelihood, was because they knew that it would turn into that they would be able to be fact-checked. And it's only because of the body cam footage that this is even a matter of national attention. The fact that video recording devices are so widespread these days has been pivotal in our ability to identify and correct police violence. Because some people think, like in their heads, they're like, cops are so violent these days. What happened to the good old days? And what they imagine is like a cop wearing just like those little cloth, like cotton, like basically polo shirts, you know? And they would just have the little hat, and they would just stand at a street corner, like whistling, and like a person would run up to them and they'd be like, somebody stole my purse. And then the cop would be like, oh, I'll get them. And they have like a little billy club, and that's about it. Yeah, they picture a constable, basically. The fact of the matter is, 50 years ago, 60 years ago, 70 years ago, the cops were acting every bit as disgustingly corrupt then as they were today. Probably in a significantly more racially biased way than they are today as well. Patrolling black communities and wreaking havoc. Rampant corruption. And who could check them? Nobody can check anything. There are no cameras or video cameras available casually. People aren't running. You know those old cameras where they had the cloth that you would put over the guy's head and it would cover like the instruments of the camera, and they would have to throw white phosphorus on the ground for lighting, and they would like turn a crank and stuff? Nobody is running after cop cars in the 1930s like, this is gonna be the scoop of a lifetime. Like, no, nobody's doing this, okay? The fact that we can record this shit now makes a huge difference in our ability to correct these problems, and body cam footage is one of our best weapons. Now, body cam footage is expensive to maintain. Unfortunately, if we want cops to have body cams, that's something we're going to have to pay for. Not only is the actual equipment expensive, but upkeep, maintenance, server storage, and then technical expertise to parse all that information, that does cost money. I would say that's money well spent. I'd rather that money go towards that than whatever the fuck else they're spending money on these days in these police departments. That does, yeah, I would say it's a worthwhile investment, okay? Definitely on the better end of money spent on the police. And it's important, too, because the fact that cops are willing to lie, the fact that DAs are willing to lie this frivolously, when they know they can be double-checked in just a few days, means that without the body cam footage, they're doing this doubly. They're doing this triply so. And we have extensive evidence that very, very frequently, when body cam footage is available, cops' testimonies are contradicted by the factual evidence. This happens over and over and over again. They lie even when they know they're being recorded at all times. They have a propensity, they can't help it, because cops think they're above the law. That's why you keep seeing them running red lights. You ever see a cop run a red, like they put their lights on, the wee-woo for just a second, then they run a red light, and then they turn it off, and they just wanted like, oh, okay, just get me through here, you know? They'll double park. They'll do whatever. Barely an understanding of the Constitution, these thugs. Barely an idea of what their legal limitations even are, which is why we so constantly see these violations of people's constitutional rights with regards to the treatment from police, because they think they're wolves amongst sheep. They're trained, they're taught from day one at the academy that they are these warrior kings, these aggressors whose job it is to walk amongst the peasantry, to keep order, this killology philosophy. And it makes them angry, it makes them defensive, it makes them paranoid. This isn't good for them either, by the way. And it makes them lie. Because it's all some big buddy frat boy show to them. Cops know it's us versus them, or at least they think that's what it is. So if one of them gets caught, they'll all run to defense. You know why? Because a cop that doesn't gets fucked over by their partners. There are 1,000,001 ways that cops can get fucked over if they lose the trust of their department. And their department needs everyone in lockstep. Everyone has to get behind this. It's a gang mentality. You guys remember? I think it was the city of Atlanta. There were those cops that were working with these real estate developers that own these apartment blocks who wanted to tear down their apartment block and replace it with like more expensive housing. So what the developer did was they actually basically like worked with the police department to over police that part of the city to try to arrest people on frivolous charges to get people evicted, and that way they could tear it all down. Like, an entire department, an entire police department was in on explicitly breaking the law to benefit a realtor. And the story was broken by a guy who went against it and then got thrown out of the department. Got a lot of harassment from cops afterwards, too, because he didn't go in lockstep, because he wasn't part of the team. This is why people say you can't reform this shit. And unfortunately, I kind of agree, because you can impose all the laws you want. You can put body cameras on everyone. It doesn't change the fact that, yep, they're in a club and we're not part of it. It's that simple. It's about the attitude. Why do 80% of cops vote for Trump? Or did, I suppose. Why, do you think? That's more than the military. Military is majority Democrat, or at least it's very, very close. Cops, vast majority Republican. It's a club. And there's nothing that we can really do except fundamentally reorganize the ways in which these organizations function. And I think one of the best ways that we can do that, because I'm not going to give you some pie-in-the-sky lefty answer that we need to just abolish the police with no, like, follow-up answer, because I think that's a take that's very reductive in a lot of ways, and it also goes against the lived experiences of quite a few people in this country. I mean, for Christ's sake, the black community was largely on board with the crime bill back in 1994 because they were terrified of gang presence and they did want more police in the streets. So just saying, like, get rid of all the police, whatever, dude, like, that's not really a solution. But I think what would be a really good solution would probably be a point-by-point federal investigation. Remember what they did in Ferguson? Point by point by point, and you go through and you investigate and you prosecute. You overturn every rock. You find out everything that can be done, and with explicit intent to reform these departments, you set up hiring practices to make sure the next stock of cops don't end up like the first ones. Now, that would be a lot of work, and it would be a lot of money, too. But we're talking about reforming what's essentially the largest police system in the world. That would be a nice solution. Maybe there are ways to do that, or implement a portion of that. Some way of running it through, point by point by point. And you want to bring in new people, people who don't have pre-existing connections. That's the important part. It's the connections that are an issue. You can design the best system in the world, but if you turn it over to a bunch of crooks, it's not going to be a very good system. You need to make sure the right people are heading it. Now, what I've given you is also a reductive take, of course. It's all very complicated. But something like that. A purge, if you will, though we leave aside the violent implications, because I am not one for that, of course. Political violence is wrong. But something of a systemic, one might call it a great replacement of police officers. Okay? That's what we're going to do. Get me out of here. Get me out of these. The alt-right has so many terms that mean purge, but get past filters. Yeah, execute Order 66, of course. So you mean if you pass the Civil Rights Act and you let a bunch of segregationists write the crime bills, you'll still have systemic racism? Well, sure, but systemic racism doesn't even need racist people at the helm. Systemic racism perpetuates itself through, like, systemic inequality. If you have a society where absolutely nobody is racially biased, but black people start off with less, the way economics works ensures that they'll continue to have less, at least for a very long time. Now, we do have racists in our system, and we do have explicit racism in our system, so that exacerbates the issue, but we're really fighting against, like, broader economic trends here, and social trends, and demographic trends as well.